What's an effective way to figure out how to match your career with your temperament? How can you determine if a job is a good fit or a terrible mistake? Well, let's start with the first one. What's an effective way to figure out how to match your career with your temperament? Well, the first thing you do, obviously, that you have to do is to understand your temperament to some degree. And so the best way to deal with that is to get yourself assessed using a good Big Five instrument. There's many of them online. That's the plan that will enable people to get a read of their temperament that will tell them how extroverted they are, how high they are in negative emotion or neuroticism, how agreeable, how conscientious, and how open. But it'll break each of those traits down into two aspects. So extroversion breaks into enthusiasm and assertiveness. Neuroticism breaks into withdrawal and volatility. Agreeableness breaks down into politeness and compassion. Conscientiousness into orderliness and industrious, and openness into openness proper, which is something like creativity and interest in ideas. And so the first thing you have to know is what your temperament is. And the second thing you should probably know is what your intelligence level is, what your IQ is. Because the higher your IQ, the better suited you are for jobs whose demands change rapidly. So those are complex jobs, and simple jobs are the jobs where you can learn something and then you can run it as an algorithm. You can just repeat it over and over. And those jobs, of course, are becoming more and more scarce. So you need to know what your temperament is, and then you need to know the temperamental demands of the job. Now, most jobs are mastered with a combination of intelligence and conscientiousness, but the other temperamental factors play a moderating role. So, for example, extroverted people tend to be entertainer types and highly social. And so if you're extroverted, then a career in sales is something that you might consider, or a career that involves a lot of public communication and interaction with groups. Whereas you're an introvert, you're going to be suited to work in a solitary manner a lot more. If you're agreeable, you're going to be suited for taking care of people. If you're disagreeable, then you're a tough bargainer and a hard negotiator, and litigators, for example, lawyers are often low in agreeableness. So if you're conscientious, well, that tends to be a very good trait for any kind of managerial and administrative job, and for simpler jobs as well. It's a great predictor of military prowess, for example. If you're high in openness, then you're going to want a creative career, and that might make you an entrepreneur or a musician or an artist of that, or something like that. That's often very, very difficult to monetize. But one of the funny things about openness is that if you're high in openness, it's not that helpful at the bottom of hierarchies, because you're basically expected at the bottom of most hierarchies to act more or less like a functionary, but it becomes of critical importance at the top of hierarchies. So it's a personality trait whose utility can really kick in the later stages of your career, because in really complex positions where things are changing dynamically, you need to have a high intelligence, and you also need to be creative. So how can you determine if a job is a good fit or a terrible mistake? Well, I would say you can tell if it's a terrible mistake if you dread going, and also if you're working hard and doing what you're supposed to and you're not being rewarded for it, and there's no chance for advancement. So those are good reasons to leave. So